Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Monday Morning Tennis Rant. And I had some people ask me whether I'm seeing changes in Sinner's service motion. So, for you guys that don't know, Sinner had a bad day serving in the US Open final against Alcaraz, but the serve issues started before the US Open at the tournament in Cincinnati, and generally Sinner's first serve percentage is not as good as it could be. I reported on this prior to the US Open and throughout the US Open. You can watch some of my videos on that topic. So Sinner acknowledged after losing that US Open final to Alcaraz that the serve indeed was a problem, and it quite frankly cost him that match. So Sinner said that he was going to make some changes to his game, including his serve. And there were some clips on the internet at the tournament in Beijing where Sinner is playing, where it looked like Sinner was making some changes. He was working on some technical things with his coach. And some people have asked me whether I'm seeing any changes, and I've looked at it for a while. And I didn't want to rely on the practice footage in which the coach in one clip was pushing Sinner's right hip forward. And quite frankly, I don't see any changes in his serve. Now, interestingly, the serve percentage has gone up. In the first round against Cilic, Sinner's first serve percentage was 77%. In the second rounds against Atman, who plays Sinner extremely well, he got into a tiebreak with Sinner in the Cincinnati semis, and here again he took a set off of Sinner. So Atman plays well against Sinner, and I think Ben Shelton should take a look at these matches. But in any case, Sinner served well against Atman with a first serve percentage of 63%. In the quarterfinals against Marozsan, Sinner's first serve percentage fell to 57%. He generally serves around 60% first serves. So as I discussed prior to the US Open, the first serve percentage could be related due to some technical things on the Sinner serve. You can check out a separate video that I've made on that subject. But the first serve percentage is not all about technique. It's also the intention that you have prior to serving, what type of serve you're hitting, whether you're going for an ace or a service winner, or whether you're trying to hit a spot and build the point from there on. And also, of course, what type of serve that you're hitting makes a big difference when it comes to first serve percentage. So we have to keep an eye out on Sinner serve and whether there are some improvements, but I don't see any technical differences. His intricate rhythm is still there, and of course that's something that's tough to change because he's been serving like that for a while. Now, in the Beijing tournament, he plays Alex de Minaur next, someone that he's beaten the 10 times that played each other. It's a really bad matchup for Alex, and I don't see Sinner having any trouble. Now, Carlos Alcaraz, after playing the Laver Cup, he went right to Tokyo, and in the first round match against Baez, he hurt his ankle. And I was quite scared for Carlos because he looked like he might have done something to his Achilles, but he didn't. It was the ankle. And as a right-handed player, if you're going to do something to your ankle, you better do something to your left ankle compared to the right ankle. Of course, if you have a severe ankle injury, it doesn't matter what foot it is, you won't be able to play. But if you have some slight problems with the ankle, you're better off having those problems on the left side. And why is that? Because you're going to do the vast majority of the sliding as a right-handed player with the right foot. Now, of course, Carlos Alcaraz, just like many other top players, also slides with the left side, especially on that wide double-handed backhand where he slides in with the left foot. So post the match against Baez, which he won, Carlos Alcaraz played some of the most spectacular tennis that I've seen all year. And Carlos Alcaraz this year is the king of consistency. This is the new Alcaraz. Ever since losing to Goffin in Miami, Carlos has made 9 consecutive finals. And despite having some issues with that ankle, where he's not sliding that much or not at all with his left foot, he is playing an aggressive style of tennis, serving well, and playing spectacularly well. Now, he is in some discomfort. There was a point in the match against Nakashima where he was up a set, 5-4 serving for it. It was the first point of that game where Carlos Alcaraz hit an angled cross-court drop shot that Nakashima ran down. He put it back cross-court. He hit it behind Alcaraz. The ball was behind him, and this was one of the most spectacular cross-court angles that I've ever seen from Carlos Alcaraz. And this shot went viral. I've seen it all over the place. But I did see a discomfort on the Alcaraz face. He normally smiles to the crowd after hitting a shot like that. But on that particular one, I think he was in a lot of pain. He won that match against Nakashima. he played Ruud in the semifinals, who's playing well again. I watched the video on the Tennis Nerd channel, and it looks like Ruud has made a change to his racket setup. He's playing with a control racket, which is something that's very interesting. We're going to get into court speeds later in this video, so stay tuned. But most players are looking for more power, but Casper Ruud went in the other direction, and he actually made some changes that give him more control and a little bit less power. I think he went a little bit smaller in the racket head size. And it's nice to see that Casper is playing well again. He had some injury problems this year. He won the tournament in Madrid, which was his first Master Series title, something that was so nice to see because Casper Ruud often got the label by some trolls as the 250 king, meaning that he only wins 250s. And people are quick to forget that this guy made 2 Roland Garros finals and also a US Open final. But nevertheless, Casper Ruud, a top player, fun to watch, and he played really well against Carlos in that first set. Carlos did have chances in the first set to get a break at 2-all, but Casper played so aggressive, returning well, serving well, holding his own against the hard-hitting Alcaraz, who especially is hitting hard on the run with his forehand. His running forehand is better than it's ever been. I made a video on the Alcaraz forehand right after the US Open that I want you to check out. I do think that the Alcaraz forehand is better than it's ever been. It's always been good, but now it's absolutely insane how hard he's hitting it, and he's not spraying it nearly as much. So despite Carlos Alcaraz playing a decent first set, Casper Ruud ended up winning it. In the second and third set, Alcaraz started playing a lot better. He got the early break and was able to serve out both sets, but Casper Ruud had chances to get into the Alcaraz serve. He had break points early in the third set, and once he got broken, he even had a small window at 15:30 on the Alcaraz serve to get the break back. But Alcaraz ends up making the 9th consecutive final of 2025. And this is so incredible to see that now we're seeing a consistent Carlos Alcaraz that doesn't slump at all. It's going to be interesting to watch whether this slump will come at all, because Carlos Alcaraz's least favorite surface, of course, is a fast indoor court. So we'll still have to see. But my belief is that this new Alcaraz is going to continue to be tough, and it's going to give himself chances to win any tournament that he plays for the rest of the 2025 season, even on a fast indoor hard court. We shall see. The only concern I have, and going back to that spectacular point that Carlos won against Nakashima, I don't quite understand why he's putting himself through this pain, why he has so many tournaments scheduled. And I just read that he plans to play exhibitions in the United States, one in Miami and then one on the East Coast. So the schedule for the rest of the year is absolutely insane. And I just hope that Carlos Alcaraz doesn't pay the price physically for playing this much. But he is playing extremely well. So 2 things that you can say. Maybe Carlos is someone that likes to play a lot of matches and needs to play a lot of matches to play his best tennis. That certainly could be true. And you can also say that because he's playing so well, why not continue this ride? Maybe if he takes a month off, he's going to lose a little bit of that momentum that he has built up. So a couple of different ways to look at his quite crazy schedule. Now, regarding the schedule, I do want to point out that I'm doing a Monday morning tennis rant, and I'm not reporting on any champions. This 2025 tennis calendar is so out of control. We have finals happening during the week. I guess the Tokyo final is going to happen on a Tuesday. I guess the Beijing final is going to happen on a Wednesday, and the Shanghai tournament is going to start this week. The draw is already out. I think Djokovic is drawn in the same half as Sinner. They're on the bottom. Carlos Alcaraz is on top, and you can potentially face Zverev in the semifinals if Zverev makes it there. But nevertheless, I don't like tournaments ending in the middle of the week. This is not good for the fans. And I do think that the big tournaments, the Masters 1000, the WTA 1000s, are the ones to blame because they are getting extended, and other tournaments have to accommodate the big tournaments. That is my belief, and it's certainly something that I don't like seeing. I want to see tournaments end on a Sunday because then we can get excited for the finals and talk about them on a Monday. So speaking of finals, who's going to win the Tuesday final between Fritz and Alcaraz? Fritz played some of the best tennis I've ever seen him play at the Labor Cup. In Tokyo, he's been doing something he's been doing all year, and that's tough out matches. He's playing the clutch points better. In the semifinals, he faced one of my favorite players on tour, That's Jensen Brooksby, who's a high-energy player. He brings a lot of excitement to the game. And this is surely a tough matchup for Taylor Fritz because playing another American is always tough, but especially playing Brooksby, he's such a high-energy opponent. That's not an easy guy to play. Fritz has beaten him in the Eastbourne final on grass, which was a tricky two-set victory for Taylor. And in the semifinals in Tokyo, Fritz was just too strong. He was serving out of his mind, playing so solid off the back of the court. And the big question is, will Taylor beat Carlos Alcaraz again? He took him out 3-2 at the Laver Cup, and a lot of people were saying this is not the real Carlos Alcaraz. He doesn't care because the Laver Cup is an exhibition. I talked about this in great detail in my last Monday morning tennis rant. I don't consider the Laver Cup as an exhibition. I do think that the victory over Alcaraz at the Laver Cup is meaningful for Taylor Fritz, and he's going to bring in a lot of confidence into tomorrow's final. But I also think that Carlos Alcaraz is a player that learns from losses, and he's going to bring the heat tomorrow. He's playing extremely aggressive this week in Tokyo. I don't think that Alcaraz played aggressive enough in the match against Taylor, which was one that Taylor was controlling for sure. So I do believe we're going to see a different Alcaraz tomorrow, and I also believe that Alcaraz will take this title. Let me know in the comments who you think will win the final tomorrow between Fritz and Alcaraz. I want to end this Monday morning tennis rant with something controversial that happened since my last Monday morning tennis rant, and that's Roger Federer's controversial statement that tournament directors are wanting to get a Sinner and Alcaraz final, and therefore all the courts are playing the same. And I do want to talk about this because I think Roger Federer got unfairly criticized by saying this, and he was taken out of context for sure because he didn't specify a certain time frame.
We need to have not only fast court, but what we would want to see is Alcaraz or Sinner figured out on lightning fast, and then have the same match on super slow and see how that matches up. And that's how the ranking points used to be. Remember, back in the day, only 12 tournaments counted, so everybody would play on their favorite surface.
They would stack their surfaces.
Yeah, and then they would sometimes meet. And those were the best matches, you know, when you had the attacker against the retriever. And now everybody plays similar. It's because the tournament directors have allowed, with the ball speed and the court speed, that every week is basically the same. And that's why you can just go from winning, I don't know, French, Wimbledon, US Open, and just play the same way.
Because here's my belief regarding court speeds. I do think there's a big difference in court speeds when we're talking about the 90s and the 2000s. I do think that this is where tennis drastically changed. It is my belief that a lot of tournaments were worried in the era of the big servers, where you had, for example, Sampras-Ivanisevic matches that featured absolutely no rallies at all. I do think that some people found that style of tennis boring. These were the 90s. And then in the 2000s, things changed. I do believe that it was in 2021 where the Wimbledon surface started playing a lot slower. And interestingly, that's where Federer took out Sampras in the fourth round. So I don't believe that there's been that much change in the 2000s. And one of the reasons why Federer was criticized so much after making the statement is that when you look at the data, we can see that, in fact, it's the opposite. The courts have gotten faster over the last few years. More specifically regarding hard courts, you're going to have a hard time finding a hard court tournament that has slowed down their courts. This is even true for the slowest hardcore tournament of a big caliber, which is Indian Wells. But one thing that people are taking out of context is the following. Roger Federer said that he wants to see lightning fast courts, and he wants to see super slow courts. And he wants to see Sinner and Alcaraz battle it out on a lightning fast courts and on a super slow court. And I think Federer, being an old school guy who's been around for a while, I think when he says lightning fast, he's talking about courts from back in the 90s, because some of you guys might not know that players back then used to compete on carpet, a surface that doesn't exist anymore. And it is a lightning fast surface. So if you are a baseliner that prefers slow surfaces, you're going to struggle on that surface. And big servers, players that perform well on fast surfaces, are going to perform really well. Now, interestingly, the CPI data on the Tennis Nerd website suggests that clay courts have also gotten faster. So I do agree with Roger Federer 100%. Bring back the lightning fast courts and bring back the super slow courts where you're going to have long rallies where it's going to be so hard to hit winners. So I do want to see variety because players are going to adapt, of course, based on the surface, but it would be interesting to see how players adapt to these surfaces and how they play against each other when there's a stark difference between the surfaces. But one thing that no one is mentioning are the tennis balls. And I got to tell you, as a tennis coach, I'm seeing a stark difference in tennis ball quality. Interestingly, also, the price keeps going up, but the quality keeps going in the other direction. You open up a new can of tennis balls and you hit for a half hour and balls fluff up. And I know that I've been using certain balls for many, many years, and I can see that it's not the same quality. And this is somewhat recent, I would say, after the pandemic, the ball quality started going down significantly. Now, I do want to point out that some balls have improved. For example, the Wilson US Open ball that I was very critical of in some of my previous videos has improved in recent times. But some other balls that are used on tour, for example, Dunlop continues to be of a very poor quality where you hit for a half hour and the ball fluffs up like this. I'm not sure why that is, and I'm not saying that this is something that's deliberately done. I'm just telling you that my observation is that ball quality has gone down significantly. I am going to make a long form video where I compare different type of balls, some that are available for purchase in Walmart, for example, and I'm also going to test some pro level balls that are used on tour, and I'm going to get a very strong hitter and we're going to blast balls for a half hour with each set of balls, and we're going to see how these balls perform. So look out for that video coming to you very soon. But I do think that the balls have to be taken into consideration, and they are a huge factor why tennis is played primarily from the baseline and why we have all these extended rallies. I thought last year when I watched some matches at the Paris Masters that this to me does not look like indoor tennis. I remember the Paris Masters back when Becker was playing and he won that tournament, and the court seemed unbelievably fast. And I won't forget last year seeing a rally and the point just went on forever. And I thought, this does not look like indoor tennis. And if you take court speed out of the equation and just consider that the balls now are so fluffed up, they're so big, they're so heavy and slow, that I think this is one of the most concerning factors in the current game. Now, of course, we have to remember the 90s where we had no rallies at all. So I do understand the wish of possible tournament directors to see long, entertaining rallies. Don't get me wrong, but I do agree with Roger Federer 100% that variety is good for the game and different conditions are good for the game. And on top of all that, I do think that the fact that the balls are fluffier and of a lower quality, this affects players differently. I do think that players at the very top of the game, we're talking about Sinner, Alcaraz, and Djokovic, it doesn't matter what balls they play with, they seem to be able to hit these balls the same way they do with better quality balls. According to Daniil Medvedev, Sinner and Alcaraz are not affected by balls that fluff up. They rip the ball so hard, it doesn't really matter. But I do think that a lot of players are negatively affected by the tennis balls and nothing else. For example, speaking of Daniil Medvedev, his performances have gone down big time, and I know that he's been experimenting with his racket setups. He's playing with different rackets, different string setups, and he's looking to get more power. And he's affected by the ball quality more than some other players. And of course, another player that's affected by this, in my opinion, is Tsitsipas, who also has been struggling as of late. You can even possibly include Zverev into this category of players who is struggling with the ball quality, even though his results have been a lot better than Medvedev's and Tsitsipas's. But in any case, whatever level of tennis is affected, we don't want to play with balls that fluff up. We want to have good ball quality. We, of course, want to have balls that last a little bit longer. We don't want to toss them in the garbage after one set. So something has to be done about the ball quality. I don't exactly know what can be done. I'll tell you quick anecdote. This is prior to me going on the YouTube channel. My favorite coaching ball was Penn Coach. I thought this was a very inexpensive ball, and it was of a decent quality, perfect for teaching. And this is going back many years. And then I noticed all of a sudden the quality of the Penn Coach ball went down big time, where I couldn't use these balls anymore. They were getting fluffy, they were going dead super fast. So I contacted the company, which turned out to be Head and not Penn, because Head bought Penn. And they didn't really give me any information other than sending me 2 free cans of Penn Coach balls, which I then opened, but unfortunately they were just as bad as the ones that I bought at Walmart. And from that point on, I had to move on to the next ball. So currently I'm using Diadem, which is not the lightest ball in the world. It does get quite heavy, but I do think the durability is quite good. And I am affiliated with Diadem, so you can get 15% off on Diadem balls if you type in code Intuitive Tennis 15. And I do think that this is a high quality ball. This is the official tennis ball for Intuitive Tennis matches that I feature on my channel. But other than Diadem, like I said before, thankfully the US Open Wilson ball has improved quite a bit, and I've played some matches recently with it, and it doesn't fluff up quite as much as it used to before. So hopefully the trend of horrible ball quality will end, because unfortunately we're paying a higher price for lower quality balls, and this is affecting all of us, whether we're talking about the rec level or the elite level. In the same way, we want to play with better quality tennis balls.